Reading with your kids.
Hola, niho, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni wanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We're so delighted, so very honored that you're joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Himalaya, Ghana, Podcast Addict. You get it. Wherever you find your podcast, you can find the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest today is Suzanne Jacobs Lipshaw. She is here to celebrate Mighty Mahi. Before we invite Suzanne into the studio, we want to let you know that this episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by Power Down and Parent Up, cyberbullying, screen dependence, and raising tech-healthy kids by our friend Holly Kinley. Has your child ever been cyberbullied? Has your child ever bullied others? Do you know what to do and how to respond? And Power Down and Parent Up parents, guardians, will learn how to protect their children from cyberbullying, how to intervene when the unthinkable happens, and how to prevent future incidents. It's a really, really powerful book that will help you and your family in so many ways. Power Down, Parent Up by Holly Kinley. This episode of the podcast is also brought to you by Carry Me Home, a poignant and powerful reminder that homelessness is not hopelessness, written by Janet Fox. Two sisters struggle to keep their father's disappearance a secret in this tender middle grade novel that's perfect for kids of Catherine Applegate and Linda Millay Hunt. 12-year-old Lulu and her younger sister Serena have a secret. As Daddy always says, it's best if we keep it to ourselves. And so they have. But hiding your past is one thing. Hiding where you live and that your daddy has gone missing is harder. This is a beautiful book that can spark some really important conversations between you and your kids. Carry Me Home, a middle grade novel by our friend Janet Fox. Join us right now from right outside of Detroit in the state of Michigan. Our guest today is here to celebrate. Her brand new book is called Mighty Mahi. Please welcome back to the show, Suzanne Jacobs Lipshaw. Hey, Suzanne, how are you?
I am great. How are you, Jen?
I'm wonderful. It's a beautiful day here in Boston.
We got the sun shining here in Michigan, too.
Yeah. Now, you know, it makes sense that we're enjoying the sun, and I was sharing with you an experience I had a few years ago in the sun on a boat off the coast of Puerto Rico, where we encountered a giant sea turtle swimming in the ocean alongside our boat. And when we read Mighty Mahi, we're going to meet a giant sea turtle. Is that right?
Actually, you're going to meet a juvenile sea turtle. So we'll eventually get much larger. But the story of Mahi takes place when she, and I'm going to say she with quotation marks around it, because you don't know if a sea turtle is a boy or girl until they're 30. And Mahi was a juvenile sea turtle. So because they named her Mahi, they referred to her, the center that rehabilitated her referred to her as Mahi, but you really don't know if Mahi is a girl or a boy yet.
Wow. That's a fascinating, fun fact that not too many know. Not too many people are aware of, I'm sure.
Yeah, I learned a lot when I was actually teaching my students about sea turtles, which is how the book came about. And I put about 20 fun facts just like that in the back matter of the book. So there's some really interesting information in the back.
So tell us about Mahi, other than the fact that we don't quite know Mahi's gender until Mahi turns 30. What else are we going to learn about Mahi, and tell us more about her story?
I'm going to start with the story of my students because that leads into the story of Mahi. I was a teacher. I just recently retired, and I was teaching struggling readers about all their skills And I do that through a year-long science theme. And so the year it was oceanography. And somehow I got connected, I don't even remember how, to a place called the Georgia Sea Turtle Center, which rehabs and rescues sea turtles. And Mahi was taken to that center and was a patient that could be symbolically adopted for $50. I wanted my students to reach out, make a difference, and have some project-based learning, so there was a purpose to everything they were studying and reading, and they could really relate more and be more motivated to learn. So Mahi was missing her right front flipper and needed a lot of intensive care. And we found all this out through a virtual field trip long before people were doing virtual field trips over Zoom and that kind of thing. And I just kind of put it in the back of my head that this is just a really uplifting story of this turtle who went through a 2-year rehab and get herself prepared to go back into the ocean, which is the ultimate goal for these rehabilitation centers. And when I decided to sit down and write another book, Mahi was one of the ideas that popped right in my head. And so it is told from Mahi's point of view, but everything that Mahi tells is a true story about what happened to her. Obviously, there's a few uh-ohs and hoorays in there that we really don't know if Mahi is thinking that or not. But overall, it is a factual book about the story of her rescue, rehab, and eventual release back to the ocean.
Wow. Do we know what happened to Mahi, how she lost her flipper?
Yes. Mahi was entangled in fishing line, and that's how they found her. She had made her way to the shore, and a hiker found her. And not only had it been wrapped around her flipper, she had ingested some of it also. So they rushed her to the Georgia Sea Turtle Center. The first operation they did was to get the fishing line out of her stomach and her digestive tract. And then the next day, they took a look at her flipper, which was at that point, and even the day before, it was obvious it was going to need to be amputated. And so my story really focuses more on the recovery she had to make because of losing her flipper, but it was because of fishing line that was left in the ocean for creatures to come across. And so many sea creatures, not just sea turtles, ingest those items, and it causes them great havoc and harm. It's really sad what people are doing to our oceans.
Yeah. What was your students' reaction when they first met Mahi?
Well, I had set it up, and I tell the story in the back matter of the book, that the guide who was showing us around would kind of imply that, you know, if they wanted to raise some money, they could adopt Mahi, but I wanted it to be their idea. And when she said it was a possibility, one of my students jumped out of his chair, threw his fist in the air, and went, "We can do this!" And they ended up raising $1,700.
Wow.
It was
amazing.
incredible.
That is incredible. And it just is a reminder to kids that they are empowered and that they can make big changes in the world.
They absolutely can. And that's really, I think, the theme of, well, the 2 books that I have out so far is that kids can make a difference. And support, not just from kids and all the other adoptive parents, you know, who took care of Mahi, but the hiker who reported her, and the woman who was called and raced in her car as a volunteer to pick up Mahi and drive her to the center, and all the people at the center who worked with her. I mean, everybody, no matter how old you are, you can make a difference in our world, and that's just huge.
I'm imagining if I received that phone call and I had the honor and the experience of transporting Mahi in the back of my van, It would have been really cool. It would have been an interesting conversation if I went too fast and I got pulled over by a state trooper and
Right.
had to explain what I was doing with a giant sea turtle in the back of my van.
But however, I would think any area like Florida and Georgia where this happens, these troopers are probably aware of the immediacy that's needed and probably would have given you a pass and said, keep on going. You're doing a good thing, Jen.
It is very apparent that it's important to you to remind kids that they can make great changes in the world. Your first book talked about, I think it was your son,
Yes.
who put together a petition to make it legal to sell ice cream. Am I remembering that right?
It is, yes, you are correct. There were ice cream trucks were prohibited in our neighborhood, and he didn't think that was fair. And he went in front of the town council, and he attended several meetings, wrote letters, petition, and he got the law changed. And now in West Bloomfield, Michigan, ice cream trucks are allowed because of a 9-year-old boy and his friends who helped him out.
Wow. What's just kids, your students' reaction when, because kids have heard this, you're the future, you can do anything. And with a lot of kids, their reaction is, yeah, we've heard that before, but you're just saying that. Do your kids have a different reaction?
They absolutely do, and that's why as a teacher I feel really strongly about project-based learning. Basically what that is you teach whatever skills you're trying to teach, and for me it was teaching maybe some basic decoding, sight words, comprehension, but you have to give them a purpose and a reason. So by creating this project where we needed to inform our school community about the threats that sea turtles face, they got very invested and very motivated. And at the end, they did truly feel they made a difference. I mean, we were starting with maybe, let's get $50 to adopt Mahi. And then as they were doing their research, and please remember, these are 3rd to 5th grade kids. They're doing their research. They find out, wait, there's another turtle at the Georgia Sea Turtle Center that could be adopted named Sprout. Maybe we could get $100. And then I'm doing some research and I find out that some turtles were cold stuns from New England, and they were flying them in private jet planes with volunteer pilots, taking them from New England to the Georgia Sea Turtle Center where they could care for them. And then my kids are like, well, now we got to make enough money to help those turtles too. And so we had to keep brainstorming. What are we going to do to make more money? How are we going to let our school community know the importance of this? And it just became, a 10-week project that we really worked on, and they felt empowered.
Now, if there's, and I don't think this person would be listening to the Reading with Your Kids podcast, but they might be, and they might be sitting back kind of old and curmudgeon and just saying, hey, this project-based, kids go to school, sit down and just learn. I shouldn't need to put on a show to get you to learn. You should just sit down, be quiet, study, and learn. What would you say to that person?
I could do it more with waving my hand. You haven't been in education recently. Kids can do so much. And I think in the past we felt that just sitting there and learning was enough. But they're learning problem-solving skills. They're learning how to use the computer. They're learning empathy. There's so many other things that we do as teachers. And even when I went into teaching 30 years ago, my first sentence in my philosophy of education was, my job is to teach kids to grow academically, socially, and emotionally. And that is still our job to this day. And the self-esteem that was created in these struggling readers was huge because of this project. So when you raise someone's self-esteem and you empower them, then they believe that they can actually learn to read when they've been struggling for so long. And you see so much more success in the students. So it's just it's a fun way to teach, and the results through the testing we have to do, proved. And I was able to keep teaching with this year-long theme the whole time I was there, even though it was a very unique and it didn't quite follow the mode of what most teachers in my district did, but because I was showing success, my principal was behind it, my special ed director was behind it, and so was the superintendent.
Well, that's one of the things I was going to ask you. We hear these days from a lot of teachers that there's this pressure to teach to the test, and that doesn't allow teachers to be more creative and that they're really tied in. Is that something that's vital to education, to have principals and superintendents to be supportive and to have open minds?
Absolutely. And if I did not have my principal who recognized the value of the first year I did my theme teaching, I probably wouldn't have been able to continue it. And it was just the opposite. I said to her, listen, I have 4 students who came up to me at the end of the year and said, Mrs. Lipshaw, what is our theme going to be for next year? Because I have these students several years in a row. And I kind of went, you'll have to come back next year and see what the room is decorated like, because I decorate the room to whatever the theme was, and said, obviously my kids want this. And when I shared that with my principal, she said, well, that fits in perfect with your evaluation, because I want to say you developed an incredible sense of community that year. And not only did you raise awareness with your own students, you empowered the entire school, and we had kids who wanted to be in my resource room class where you get pulled out, which, doesn't always have the, students that can be a little bit, I can't think of the word I want, just self-conscious of being pulled out of their classroom and coming to a class to learn to read better. And it was, wow, you guys do such fun things. I want to be in your class. So then again, that motivation. So having a principal who noticed that and then pushed me to continue that, and that's how I taught for the rest of my career, was phenomenal.
I think that makes perfect sense. When you think about what people do in their lives by choice, after they're finished with school and finished with having to learn certain things because someone decided they needed to learn that, they're learning, in addition to their primary focus, they're learning all sorts of other skills. If you love soccer,
Absolutely.
if you love ballet, and you're really focusing on developing your soccer skills or your dance technique, you're also learning about your body and how to take care of your body, and you might be learning how to communicate what it is you're doing with the world. So it's not just that one theme that you're learning about. You're learning about all these other things, and the theme is just a hook. It's just the way just a way to get them in the seats. Right.
It's a catalyst to get them going, and they take off. Yeah. It was really an incredible experience. And that year with the oceanography theme was probably the top year of my teaching career. I mean, it was tremendous what the kids were able to accomplish.
Now, is this something you think that a family could do if a family decided to pick up Mighty Mahi? We definitely want to encourage everybody to check it out. Could they come home and experience this book together and say, hey, let's start having a Mahi theme here for a month or 2 months, and while we're kind of learning everything we can about sea turtles, we're also encouraging our kids to read, and so they're reading picture books about it, and we might be reading scientific books about it, and then sharing that knowledge and just kind of replicating what you were doing in your classroom within the home community.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's what I did with my son Josh when he was campaigning for ice cream trucks. I saw a learning opportunity and said, hey, let's call the township and find out what we can do. And so you can do the same kind of thing with your kids. And, everybody loves animals and sea turtles. I just didn't really know much about sea turtles. And when I started falling into this, my passion for sea turtles has grown tremendously. And I can't believe how many people I run into who also love sea turtles. So finding something that your kids love, like sea turtles, and that they care about, helps them to want to learn more. Hopefully the facts that I have in the back of the book will make them go, wow, this is interesting. Let's learn even more. And it'll also help them with, the dangers of plastics in the ocean. And there's just so much that you can do with the story of a turtle that was injured. And the huge message behind this story is the perseverance of Mahi herself, because that was the longest they've ever had a turtle at the Georgia Sea Turtle Center. The perseverance of my students who, did this project, and the support of a community with, again, Mahi and what everybody does in Florida and Georgia to protect these sea turtles' eggs, because basically the mom comes onto the beach, lays her eggs, and goes back in the water. And it's kind of like a free-for-all with these eggs. So if the community people were not there to help protect these nests, sea turtles would be even more endangered than they already are.
Yeah. Hey, you mentioned that in the back of the book you list 20 fun facts about sea turtles. What is the most surprising to you of those fun facts?
Well, one was not knowing if it was a boy or girl till they're 30. And then the other gender fact that I thought was interesting was that the gender of the turtle depends a lot on the temperature of the sand where the turtle egg is being laid. So if the sand is warming, then we are going to have, I believe it's more males. And any kid who's listening, you might want to Google this fact, because I'm not 100% sure if it's the males with the higher temperature. I believe it is the male. So we are going to see, as climate change happens and as temperature rises, we're going to see more male turtles, or it could be more female turtles, but we're not going to have that evenness in gender. And I thought that was fascinating, that the temperature affects the gender of the turtle being born.
That really is fascinating. And it sounds like Mighty Mahi is one of these books that a family can read again and again and get something different from each reading.
I truly appreciate that. That's what I set out to do. And the fact that you can realize that just from me talking about the book without even seeing it means a lot. Because every book has a heart to the story. And yes, it is about a sea turtle and what she needed to do to survive. But again, it's really about perseverance and support and lots of other levels to the book itself.
And those are lessons that are so important for all of our kids to learn and to really believe in. Suzanne, tell us where we can go to learn more about you and to learn more about Mighty Mahi.
Well, first of all, I want to give a shout out to my illustrator, Dorothy Shaw, because without the illustrations in a picture book, you're only seeing half the story. So she's phenomenal. The book was published by Doodle and Peck Publishing, so you can go onto their website to get the book. You can go on bookshop.org, which will connect you to independent bookstores, and you'll be able to get the book through there. Of course, Barnes & Noble, Amazon. If you go on my website, SuzanneJacobsLipshaw.com, I have all the links to all of the places where you can order the book. And of course you can request it at your library, and if you don't have the money to buy the book, that's fine too. Request it at your library, go there and check it out.
Yeah. And you kind of broke up when you're giving us your website. It's SuzanneJacobsLipshaw.com?
Correct.
Awesome. We've had a wonderful time speaking with the author of Mighty Mahi, the new picture book from our guest, Suzanne Jacobs Lipshaw. Hey, Suzanne, thanks so much for being with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on again, Jed.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Katie Zhao. She's returning to the show to celebrate her brand new novel. It's called Winnie Zing Unleashes a Legend. That's the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Hey, if you are the author of a fantastic children's book, we would love to help you celebrate that book. There are so many ways that we can help you celebrate your book to the world. You can find out how by going to our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Clicking on the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page, you can scroll on down to find out how you can be a guest on the podcast and tell the world about your fantastic book. It's fun, it's easy, it doesn't cost a thing. Oh, you can also learn how you can submit your book to our Certified Great Read panel. And if they believe that your book is worthy of 4 or 5 out of 5 stars, it becomes a Certified Great Read. And with that status comes a number of really powerful tools that can let parents know that your book is worthy of their consideration the next time they are thinking of adding to their family library. Oh, we also have an amazing monthly promotion package that will celebrate your book with commercials here on the podcast, with messages to our 89,000 social media followers, and also display your book on our nationwide network of digital pedestrian billboards. We have billboards in Los Angeles, Sacramento, Hermiston, Oregon, Albany, New York, Toledo, Ohio, Atlanta, Georgia, and right here in Boston, Massachusetts. In fact, one of our boards is on the route from Fenway Park to the closest subway stop. So, you know, there are thousands of people passing those boards every single day. Learn all about these opportunities by going to our website, readingwithyourkids.com, and clicking on the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, I want to start by thanking our guest, Suzanne Jacobs Lipshaw. Please be sure to check out Mighty Mahi. I also want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Nicole Bellicastro, Ashley Contouris. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.